Of the board of directors for this corporation called the American government.
A monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, or night, depending on where you're at. You guys want to talk about cold? I don't know how it is wherever you're tuning in from, but boy, is it freezing here in Michigan, in the United States. It is like 3 degrees with a wind chill of like negative 15. Oof, man, so I'm even wearing my hoodie inside today. You guys will have to forgive me for not dressing up. But well, today's inauguration day here in the United States, so will it go off without a hitch? We don't know. I was just looking up there's a peaceful protest. Apparently, you know how those peaceful protests go. They're diverse and inclusive and always mostly peaceful. You know, they only light fires to warm themselves ordinarily because it's cold out. You know what I mean? But no fires yet. So we'll see how that goes. Aside from that, we have some other interesting things to cover. For the first time ever, a politician actually admitted that the Bank of England owns our debt. So that's pretty incredible. We're going to definitely do a little deep dive on that. Artificial intelligence itself is a psychological operation, and go ahead and ask the artificial intelligence if the Bank of England owns our debt, and it gives you this long bullshit. It's funny because I can prove it 85 times over. So it just shows you that this artificial intelligence is artificial and not intelligent. It's pre-programmed and just tells you what its masters want you to know. And most of these normies go ahead and they ask questions to ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, and they think, oh, this supercomputer is going to give me the right answer. This has got to be right, or like one of us will try to red pill somebody and give them some information, be like, hey, did you know this is going? No, ChatGPT said that's not true, and it's a supercomputer. It's artificially intelligent. So, and you're just some crazy conspiracy theorist. It's like, well, I can actually show you all of the proof, but whatever. So anyways, let's say hi to who we've got in the chat here. Let's see. We've got Ida Hat. Where am I? I believe you are on Rumble. Hopefully still there. Dorian Gray says he's watching Sovereign Soul Unchained Minds stream from last night. The Calvary is coming. Well, I hope you enjoy that. A little too cynical for my taste at some points, but always an entertaining show over there at Sovereign Soul. Theo Shen, good morning. Beyond Elemental, good morning, of course. Sorry about this weekend. Very heavy, dark stream. If you have not caught the Rumble stream on called Pizza Parlor. Very heavy. My soul still feels a little dirty after covering that. But if you guys like that content, you want me to get into the satanic panic again, just put it in the chat. We do also got to get back to the law at some point. We're going to cover some of that this morning as it pertains to the monetary policy, because it is actually part of the news, and it is a psychological operation that people even believe that those paper contracts are money. They're not at all. They're debt contract, debt notes. So, but anyway, that for later. We've got Jerry, son of Mick. Good to see you, man. Tuning in from across the pond. Peg's Place. Good to see you. Rethink Inc. Good to see you, man. Tony. Good to see you. Gregory. One More Quarter. Dead and Drumming. Good to see you guys. Dick Wayne. CJ. Horseshit. That's pretty funny. Good to see you guys. So, I was debating on what to start with this morning. And I figured I came across this video. It was actually kind of information. I mean, I know so government's just basically the major league mafia in general. International government is just major league mafia. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been. Well, not always. At one point in time in this country, we were actually above the government. We still are, if you know how to claim it. That's the big difference. That's one of the reasons why this country is so hated by the communists, is because our founding documents actually place the people in place of a king or an emperor or dictator, meaning each individual, one of the people, not person, that's a corporate persona, is a sovereign and has sovereign authority. We're sovereigns without subjects, meaning that our rights end where another person's begin, and the government serves us. And if they do not serve us properly, then we fire them, and depending on how they have messed up, we prosecute, not really the right term. We take action against them at common law. So, but where I decided to start was this mafia. I came across this interesting tidbit of information about California that even I didn't. I mean, I could have guessed, obviously, but I did not know, and I thought you guys might enjoy seeing this morning. So check this out. Hold on. Jerry says exactly 100, Ryan. He says, I'm shocked at the people warning, stay away from the smart gadgets that are constantly telling us of the amazing things. Yeah, AI is full of shit. Sometimes it's useful creating images if you're a creator, stuff like that. Copyright-free songs totally has its uses, but it's definitely not any place to get your information. That's for damn sure.
Pat Brown's father, Edmund Joseph Brown, was known for running scams and gambling operations in San Francisco. With the help of businessman William Newsom II, Pat Brown became governor of California.
Whoops. Brown. Hold on, we got to go back a little bit. Look at those names. Brown, Newsom, Pelosi, and Getty. Those are still major political names to this day, specifically from California. So let's continue.
Newsom II, Pat Brown became governor of California for 2 terms. During his governorship, he awarded the Squaw Valley concession contract to William Newsom III and his partner, John Pelosi. The deal was criticized for the state of California paying for everything and getting nothing.
Sounds about right.
William Newsom III grew up with the governor's son, Jerry, who was training to be a Jesuit priest. John Pelosi's son, Paul, married Nancy D'Alessandro, daughter of Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., who was known for smuggling heroin into the U.S. with Lucky Luciano and the Baltimore Mafia.
Surprise.
John Pelosi's son, Ron, married William Newsom's daughter, Barbara. Over ongoing disputes about the Squaw Valley concession, William Newsom Sr. threatened to hurt the governor politically, just as Governor Brown was running for a 3rd term against Ronald Reagan. He lost. But 8 years later, the former governor's Jesuit son, Jerry, reclaimed the governorship in 1974. He appointed William Newsom III to a Placer County judgeship in 1975, and 3 years later to the State Court of Appeal. William Newsom was an attorney for oil magnate J. Paul Getty, named in the 1966 Guinness Book of World Records as the world's richest private citizen. And while serving on the appellate bench in the 1980s, he helped Getty's son, Gordon, secure a change in state trust law that allowed him to claim his share of a multi-heir trust. After Newsom retired from the bench, he became administrator of the Getty Trust and provided seed money for his son Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi's nephew, to start the plump jack business that led to a career in San Francisco politics as mayor of San Francisco and lieutenant governor of the state of California. Gavin Newsom was informally adopted by the Gettys after his parents divorced, and recently succeeded family friend Jerry Brown to be the current governor of California.
Look
For
at that,
80
trading
years,
hands.
these four
It's
families
just
have
passing
ruled
hands
over.
between the families. Jerry Brown to Newsom. See Brown right here. Boom, boom, boom. Nancy Pelosi up there in the Senate. Wretched insider trading bitch. I mean, realistically though, you could just copy your trades and probably make a lot of money. I'm just saying. But yeah. Anyway, criminals
Over the state
mafia.
of California politically. And with the help of Kamala Harris, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, and Dianne Feinstein, California's uncontrollable state government spending has amounted to over $2 trillion in debt and the highest tax rates in the country.
Yeah, it's because it's a communist country. That's the whole name of the game. See, that's it. We all started on equal footing, essentially, once upon a time, 1776 in this country. And then the wealthy and the clever got together like a bunch of wolves and essentially swindled everyone else out of their estates. You have an estate, whether you realize it or not. Everyone has a house and everyone has an estate, and that's under common law. It's just how it is. It's how it was for centuries. You didn't have to be wealthy for that to be the case, and they took advantage. Well, first they made you ignorant, took advantage of your ignorance, sheeted your estates, and then mortgaged them to the federal corporation, which then, or pledged them to the federal corporation, which then mortgaged them to a third-party central banking cartel in order to essentially make you a debt slave, trading on your sweat equity in futures, right? And that's pretty much all the whole system. It's a big mob. It's all it fucking is. It's a big mob. But that was surprising to me to see that it's that there's that much nepotism going on in California, which, I mean, really, it doesn't surprise me, because if you think about it, California is probably one of the most evil places on earth. Like the devil, well, actually, after doing my research, I think the devil might live in Ohio, just because of how much hidden corruption and control is actually at Ohio State University. But that's a side note. But I mean, look at all the shady shit with the film industry and the music industry and everything that goes on over in California, not to mention all the pizza parties that they have. I don't know why I'm saying pizza party, because we're definitely going to cover some of that both domestically and internationally towards the end of this video. Again, might get the video struck down, but fuck it. I have a clean slate of strikes, so I mean, we can afford one. So yeah, it's not a surprise that they're using mafia-style tactics, but with obviously taxpayer-funded, extremely advanced techniques like directed energy weapons, and of course UN-funded illegals to start fires in California and turn around and buy the land back for pennies on the dollar. You know, I was watching an interview today. I should have pulled it up. It was this real estate agent in California. He's talking about, yeah, I'm actually negotiating the sale of all these properties much more quickly than I thought I would, because people, you know, they lost their insurance. They were heavily underinsured. He's like, so really, you know, they don't have the money to rebuild the dream house that they had in the Palisades. So, you know, and really all they have to sell is dirt. So they're just selling their dirt to me, and I'm negotiating the sale of this much more quickly than I even thought possible. Yeah, because BlackRock and everybody's coming in and scooping the fucking property up for pennies on the dollar in anticipation of the Olympics being there in 2028. And of course, the UN Agenda 2030 smart city that they want to build there, where they essentially have you in a 15-minute prison. On a side note, do you guys know that in China, so this is their model type of system that they want in China? They have these massive buildings that, to call them an apartment building is not even accurate, because it's like literally like an entire mall complex. And the Chinese citizens literally live in this building. They grocery shop in this building. They have all their fast food, or all their anything that they need is inside that building, and they never, ever, ever leave the building. And that's what they're gearing to see. 15-minute cities, just a step towards that, if we let them, which we're not going to, because we're more heavily armed than the rest of the world's militaries combined in this country. At least with actual regular, we don't have missiles and shit like that, but we have more arms, right, than the rest of the world's militaries combined, just in the United States. So that's in it. And I know if you're overseas or whatever, you don't necessarily have that luxury. And I don't mean to kind of throw it out there, but it is the one thing that keeps us from being taken over. Like, during the last 5 years, the COOF, the whole, whatever you want to call it, the pandemic thing, right? The only reason we didn't end up like Australia or Canada or the UK or especially China is because they knew they could only push it so far over here before we, got back at them. So let's move on from that. I thought that was just the fire's pretty much been beat to death. So I don't, there's not really any new developments going on over there, just the same corruption, the same land grab that's been happening the whole time. We know it's dues and we know it's the immigrants and all that good stuff. So I want to move on to a little bit of bumbling Biden, right? So we have a little bit of levity this morning. So this guy is a full-blown idiot. Obviously, everybody knows that. But, this was a huge gaffe. So not only can he barely speak, but apparently he says that he just signed the 28th Amendment to the Constitution into law and that we'll just watch and then we'll discuss what actually happened. Anybody hear about this? Put in the chat if you heard about this, if you're in the United States, or even if you're not, but I just figure if you're not, you probably don't really care too much about the 28th Amendment, which there really should only be 10. That's it.
No one should be discriminated against based on their sex. And in order for the amendment to be ratified, it requires 3/4 of the states to ratify it. That benchmark was passed when Virginia ratified the ERA a few years ago. Today, I affirm the Equal Rights Amendment to have cleared all the necessary hurdles to be added to the U.S. Constitution now.
So
the Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land.
He's removed all of the necessary hurdles in order to make this the law now. Unless how many times he says now, it's hilarious.
The Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land now. It's the 28th Amendment to the Constitution now. I consulted dozens of constitutional scholars to make sure there was all
dozens of constitutional scholars.
And the fact is we did. And third,
so constitutional scholar is a really stupid term to me. The Constitution is fairly cut and dry. It's written in a language that people can understand, even though it's a subversive document entirely and shouldn't exist. The Articles of Confederation are actually our original constitutions, or Constitution, and the states are actually a confederacy, all of them, even the northern ones. And I've proven this on the channel over and over again. The Constitution didn't change that, right? Because the Articles of Confederation created the states. But the 28th Amendment is supposed to be the equal rights for women, right? It was never ratified. Okay, so Virginia held out in 1977. The limit for ratification expired in 1977, and actually since 1977, the states that had formerly ratified it withdrew. They rescinded the ratification. So no, it's not law. Nothing your dementia-ridden ass can do would make it a law. And also, you wouldn't want it to be. The whole thing with the equal rights, the women's suffrage, the Feminist Act, and all that stuff. And women, you should really understand this. It was a trick. It's a banker trick, right? They wanted to be able to tax both halves of the marriage. Okay, see, prior to that, they were only able to tax one half of the marriage, right? They could then adjust the economy to make economic circumstances as such where both halves of the marriage were forced to work. They could tax both halves of the marriage, so they're doubling their income from taxation. And then on top of that, it leaves the child occupationally orphaned to be raised by government institutions, television, and now social media, which is really what they're always after. As we discussed on Saturday night, they're always after the kids, right? Because they're moldable. Speaker Jay, Beyond Elemental says, Speaker Jay Johnson, I assume you're talking about has revealed Joe had no idea what he's saying. Yeah, I actually seen that. Well, that was something else. That was with the shutting down the natural gas. That was a huge blow to our economy. And he said when he went and spoke with Biden personally, first that Biden's people didn't even let him speak to him, which Johnson's a slimy little piece of shit anyway. He has no spine whatsoever. And he pretty much just does whatever he's told to do by anybody. Chuck Schumer and all those fucking communist scumbags. But he went in and talked to Biden, or he was trying to get a meeting with Biden, and all Biden's people wouldn't give him a meeting. He's like, I'm the Speaker of the House. You know, I'm third in line to the presidency. I'm supposed to be able to talk to the president. And finally, he leaked it to the press, and the press, the press coming out with it finally forced their hand where they gave him a meeting. But when he went in there, it was Schumer and Liz Cheney, that fucking reptile, that Warhawk reptile, and a few other people were in there. And he wanted to talk to the president on his own. So he kept, saying, I would like to speak to the president. Finally, Joe Biden said, why don't you give us a moment alone give me a moment alone with the speaker. So finally, he got a moment alone with the speaker. They were all worried about it. And he asked him about the pipeline deal or the natural gas and why he canceled it. And he said, well, I didn't do that. He goes, yeah, you did. He's like, you want me to go get your secretary to print off a copy of the executive order? He said, no, I signed an executive order for a natural gas study. So this dude is which I don't even think it's Joe Biden, first of all. So I think that's all an act and probably just a bullshit story. I think that's an actor in a mask because it just doesn't even look like the original Joe Biden at all. And he's really good at playing stupid because it's better to be seen as incompetent than corrupt. So he's able to get away with sniffing kids on national television and pretty much selling out the entire country, which, I mean, it's already been sold out a long time ago, but which is what we're going to get into in a moment. But even if that story is true and Johnson didn't know that this dude's an actor and this dude acted dumb, right? It still shows you that, like, he hasn't been running anything for the entire time, right? So other people, if he really is a dementia-ridden dude, then he hasn't been running anything. And that means the CIA, because actually the head of the CIA was there in the room when Johnson tried to meet with him and everything, according to Johnson. And so he hasn't been running anything. It's been run pretty much by the CIA the entire time, which is why we have that war going on with the blue and yellow country over there where they're funneling public money into private pockets through the defense contractors. That's how they do it. That's what war is for, by the way, guys. We're not spreading democracy, which I'm pretty sure you guys know that. We go in, we pillage the resources of third world nations, whether it be oil or poppy or whatever the case, or children, whatever the case may be, right? Or probably all three. But it's also so they can take billions of dollars of public money, funnel it through the government in the form of aid to another government. And then that government is forced to purchase everything they get with the money from American contractors. So it's just a big circular money laundering scheme. And that's all it's ever been. Well, that's all it's ever been throughout the 1900s. Anyway, I'm sure it was a form of that. I mean, we've had very few honest wars, if any, other than the Revolutionary War or the War of 1812, where we were trying to get out from under the bankers. But and the Civil War, because the Confederates were actually fighting to defend the Republic, what it was actually supposed to be. And that's why there were Confederate statues. But anyway, so this guy, the 28th Amendment, not a thing. You shouldn't want it to be a thing because it's a fucking trick. My wife would love it if the economy was as such where she could be a stay-at-home mom, where she wasn't expected to have to fill that role, And I get it. If a woman wants to work, that's fine, whatever the case may be. But generally, the whole thing was a ploy to leave children occupationally orphaned and to be able to tax both halves of the marriage. That's 100% a fact. Oh, and to destroy the nuclear family, because men who have something to live for have something to die for, and they want to get rid of that also. And that's why there's been this full-on onslaught against the nuclear family for the last 100 years or so. And that's all part of the Marxist communist agenda. You guys know I talk about communism a lot because it's a very real, well, more accurately, it's called neo-feudalism. Communism is just the name of the philosophy took as neo-feudalism. They really want their old feudalist system back, where all property is controlled by one centralized authority, like it was back in 1066. It was controlled by the crown, and then everybody gets to use the property for a fee, right? And that's where licensing and everything, all that comes from. That's what they've essentially brought back through the Federal Reserve System in this country by mortgaging your estates and then turning around and charging you fees and forcing you to be licensed for the use of it. That's what we live in neo-feudalism, a very mild form of it. And they want to take that full bore into worldwide communism with digital currency and social credit scores, and you will own nothing and be happy, and you will eat the bugs. That's what they want. But fortunately, that's not going to happen, at least not here in the United States. Let's see here. Tell It All Now says, all part of a big fat shit show. WWE scripted. I think Vince McMahon runs the government. That's funny. I don't think he's I think he's a showman, but no, this we're about to see some interesting changes take place. That actually is going to bring me into my next whatever way you think it's going to go. There's definitely going to be major changes about to happen, probably after today. So if even today goes off without a hitch, we shall see. So this I want to play real quick. You guys will probably enjoy this. It's a little bit longer of a video, but it's really good. It's going to lead into the monetary policy, and the government. I'm going to show you a congressman actually admitted that if we defaulted, if the loan was called in, that the Bank of England would actually be the collector, which is amazing because no politician has ever openly mentioned that since 1933. And that was, there weren't television cameras on them or anything like that. It's just in congressional record, which actually, of course, you know me, guys, I brought it up, so I'm going to show that. But first, let's watch this. While you guys watch this, I will be right back.
There is a plot in the country to enslave every man, woman, and child. Before I leave this high and noble office, I intend to expose this plot. 7 days later, he died. The stuff that's going on around us today just doesn't make any sense. And as we go through this presentation, you'll start to realize why it doesn't make any sense, and that all of this is not by accident, that all of this misery and strife in the world today is actually by design. Why is the world divided like this? It is not by accident. All of this is by very meticulously planned action. It is all done by design through the control systems that run our world. All you got to do at all times is follow the money. You'll get to the top and discover the Rothschild banking empire and their cronies, the banking families, and what is often referred to as the royal political elite. These families that control the world did not suddenly come into power in the last 100 years. We're talking about thousands of years of royal bloodline control of the world.
No, that's absolutely right. And that's why almost every single president and most senators are related to European royalty. Like they keep management of their tax farms within the royal blood for the most part. So
the Rothschilds and the other banking families pretty much own all the central banks of the world. This is a shock to the system. The central banks of the world, like the Federal Bank of America, the Bank of England, the South African Reserve Bank, the Reserve Bank of Australia, India, Brazil, all the central banks of all the countries of the world do not belong to the people. They are owned private entities that are controlled and owned by the Rothschild banking empire. And they set the norms, the rules, and the financial policies for the countries. And they lend money to the countries, the governments and the presidents and the prime ministers and the ruling parties of the different countries. And this is why we are constantly trapped in a cycle of debt because the banks that print our money do not belong to its people. What is money really? Well, money is just an idea. It's a piece of paper. It's a tool of enslavement. And what you will learn here is that money is not something.
Shows the glaring ignorance of this guy given the presentation. And this is where the limit of most people's understanding of our current monetary system falls short, because it's not just a piece of paper, it's a contract. Okay, it's a contract. It's what it is. And all contracts have to have security. There has to be some sort of collateral hypothecated for that contract to be secured and hold any sort of future value. Though the Supreme Court has upheld many times that a promise to pay does not constitute payment. And the Credit River decision, in which the judge was killed shortly after he ruled in favor of Jerome Daley, who sued his bank over the mortgage contract because when we were taken off the gold standard, the notes were essentially insolvent and worthless. But what people fail to realize is that it's secured by your sweat equity. It's secured by your future labor and your children's future labor, right? So that's the form of enslavement. See, communism came about because slavery became internationally unlawful throughout the world. So after the Barbary slave trade and the African slave trade, the various slave trades, the world kind of, well, the elite of the world realized that they weren't going to be able to continue with slavery very much longer without, losing their heads. So they came up with a new idea, a new system of slavery, and that ended up becoming communism, absolute and entire control of all property and resources, everything a person needs to live, an individual. I hate the word person. Individual even means infant, but everything that someone needs to live and to carry out their daily life, to exercise their, right to life, essentially. Take control of all that stuff, and you can control the people. And that's essentially what communism is, to the point where you actually gain control over their entire body, which is part of your estate. But communism, or rather, as I like to call it, corporate wage slavery, taken to its fullest extreme, is the new form of slavery. Instead of giving you a house and giving you clothes and giving you food, they give you these IOUs, these contracts that are secured by your labor. They're literally secured by your own sweat equity. And then they let you pick your clothes and your food and your housing, but they only give you enough to essentially buy what you need now and live paycheck to paycheck in general, right? And the whole idea is to keep you so busy that you never figure out how to get out of it, or never, even if you do figure out how to get out of it, you never have time to, So anyway, let's watch a little bit more of this. And then this actually does have to do with today's news. I just want to give it a little preemptive,
something that evolved over thousands of years of bartering and trading as a tool that can help humanity prosper. No, it's exactly the opposite. Money.
That's also wrong. So money is actually valuable. Money is gold or silver. Okay. And wealth is something that's intrinsically valuable. It was the invention of paper currency. That's the great trick. That's the Wizard of Oz, right? The big green head that's actually a little tiny cowardly piece of inbred shit behind a curtain. And that's so the paper currency was what they were able to inflate and then eventually move entirely away from a solid backing into just IOUs, which I've explained many times, and I'll probably bore you guys to death explaining it again. But essentially, I'll keep it brief. So like you had gold and silver, that's intrinsically valuable. Everybody likes gold and silver, right? You can use it. Everybody values it. I mean, you can't use it to survive, but it provided there's a limited amount of it, so you couldn't inflate it, at least without people noticing. You could, mix it with base metals, melt it down and mix it like the Romans did. But generally, that people caught on to that, right? Then somebody got the bright idea and said, well, how about I just issue these IOUs and you can take this to any branch of my bank and redeem it for this amount of gold. And you can also use it for trade. And well, actually, that wasn't even suggested. They found, it's called the goldsmith's tale. The goldsmith found that people just started using the paper for trade instead of coming in and grabbing the gold because it was easier to hide, less chance of robbery, et cetera, et cetera. So then the goldsmith got the idea, well, since people aren't coming for their gold and they're just using the paper, then I can just make, more of these than I actually have gold. And odds are people won't all come for their gold at once. And then I can loan this out at interest. So he started inflating it, right? So it was an artificial inflation, though, because in reality, each IOU was still worth that amount of gold. Okay, so if everybody, because this did happen, when everybody came back, like if there's an economic crisis and everybody came to the bank at the same time to pull their gold out in exchange for the IOUs, they found that there wasn't enough gold to cover all of the IOUs in circulation. So what ended up happening was the banker would usually be strung up. So that's where the concept of a central bank came from. It was much smarter, start loaning to government secured by the repayment of the taxpayer. Long story short, when the Federal Reserve was finally instituted after Jackson kicked the last central bank out, what we had was gold and silver certificates, but they were still up to their old scheming ways and overinflated it, stuff like that. Politicians spending out of control, welfare programs started to get instituted, and then obviously the stock market crash, Great Depression, and what ended up happening was, since the government didn't have enough gold to cover the debt, even after FDR stole everybody's gold, essentially at gunpoint with the Gold Confiscation Act, they then decided that they were going to mortgage everybody's estates, which they now had control of through the 14th Amendment, because you're not supposed to be a United States citizen. See, there really is no way to explain this quickly because there's a lot of missing pieces. But anyways, now we just use debt as money, as currency. And it's not money, it's just debt. It's IOU, and it's secured by the mortgage of your estate, as I'll show shortly. So this is highly inaccurate in a lot of ways. Money is actually intrinsically valuable. Paper currency is worthless.
It was a tool of enslavement that was conjured up a long time ago and introduced as a complete and whole philosophy and a tool of enslavement. It's just a piece of paper that controls our lives. It burns and disappears. Where did money come from? How did money originate? Very few people are actually aware of this. Well, about 6,000 years ago, the first money appeared in the form of clay tablets. This is during the Sumerian Empire. Well, the Sumerian texts tell us about when money first appeared, and also when the first royal bloodlines first appeared. And we find the emergence of the first kings, or the so-called first priest kings.
That's actually true. Remember, I told you guys the first form of government, the first lawgivers were the priest class, and they were also the first minters of coin. Which the only purpose of money in the first place is to facilitate trade within a society. See, the only way you can have any kind of communism or even democracy, which is communism light, that's the enslavement of the minority by the majority. The only way you can have that is if you get an industrialized society where people only have specified skills, like a factory worker or a shoemaker or something like that, where no one person is entirely self-sufficient. See, in an agrarian society, an agrarian means farmer, right? In an agrarian society, it's very hard to take control of those people because they're farmers. They have their own land. They provide everything that they need themselves. They build their own house. They make their own clothing. They till the ground. They do everything themselves. So you can't, and they have all of their own wealth, and their wealth is self-producing. It's their cattle, it's their crops, it's all these things. You can't take control of these people. So the really big scam is the city, right? Cities are the scam. But on the other side of the coin, here's the flip side of that, is that humanity, while busy being agrarian, if you're a farmer and you spend dawn till dusk working your land and providing what you need to continue to survive, and you can never explore your this is going to sound kind of liberal, but it's your creative side. Like, you can never explore the arts and sciences when you're busy working all the time. So that's essentially what industrialized society provides the ability, or supposed to provide the ability, is the freedom to, they're for lawyers, and well, those are two very bad examples. Doctors and lawyers, the world could totally do without. But you know, like artists and god damn, it's really not a good profession. A teacher, maybe. I mean, you know, but you get the idea. Like, you get to be more self-explorative, explore what makes man, essentially, and I mean mankind, including women. But city is the big scam, and dependency is what creates bondage, right? So if you're not self-sufficient, you're dependent on another, which means that you end up being indebted to others in society for things that you need. You know, now in a perfect bartering system where everybody can just make something, barter, trade. I build a house, you make my shoes, you know, you grow crops, all that'd be great. Okay. But generally it never works out that way. And then when the bankers are entered, you know, that's where they go, okay, so let's facilitate trade. The bartering is a little bit more difficult. You know, what's the value of shoes compared to how much crops and stuff? So then you get a system of weights and measures. And then that's where money comes in, is to facilitate trade smoothly between people. Instead of having to carry around sheep or a bag full of shoes or something like that, you just use money. But then the people that control money, that's the magic of it. You know what I mean? That's how they take control of society, is through the money and through industrialization. Does that make sense? Am I explaining it well enough? Or let me know if you guys don't understand what I was just saying. Anyway. He's right, though. It was the priest kings, the priest class, were the first lawgivers and the first bankers.
And it just so happens that these first priest kings...
Actually, side note, do you guys know what the largest religion in the world is? Somebody put it in the chat if you do. I'll give you guys a couple moments.
Appeared out of the blue on Earth, suddenly created all the banks, they created their temples, and in their temples... they started to print these clay tablets, which became the first forms of money. So in essence, the temples of these first kings that appeared on earth were the first banks from which the first forms of money were distributed to the people. And nothing has changed in thousands of years. This is really important. So what if I told you that banks create money out of thin air? Would you be surprised? Well, that's exactly what happens. They have...
Okay, I'll tell you guys what it is. The largest religion in the world is money. It's fiat currency. Yeah, I guess consumerism is kind of an answer too. It's fiat currency, right? But you guys get the idea with this video. Here, I'll link this in the description if you guys want to check it out on your own time. It's kind of a long video, but the reason I bring that up is what we're about to get into, which is what we've been talking about for a little while here. There you go. And I'll link it over on the Rumble side as well for you guys if you're interested. The Amish is the large. Yeah. No, it's money. It's fiat currency, actually. It's in fiat and faith have the same etymological root, because it's essentially your belief that it has value that gives it value. Or even more accurately, it's the fact that it's secured, it's hypothecated. Right. What is hypothecated? Hypothecate means to take something and use it as collateral. And what is used as collateral is held in trust. And that's what makes it fiat or faith currency. But anyways, this is the crazy stuff right here. Okay. So Scott Bessent is Trump's new pick for Treasury Secretary. And, this is his confirmation hearing, happened a few days ago. A buddy of mine said something like, he said that he was going to take, that we need to get rid of the 1871 Organic Act and get back to the original Constitution and the control of currency, etc., something to that effect. Now, I looked high and low for where he said that, and I could not find it. But what I did find is the one thing that was said in the Senate confirmation hearing that spurred that discussion. And that's this guy right here actually admits that if we were to default, if there was a collapse in the economy, that the Bank of England is our creditor. Check this out. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to switch it over. Sorry, guys. It's late for me, early for you, or afternoon, but it's my nighttime. Here we go.
Let me ask you, in the short time I have, one sort of obscure question. and another one that we discussed in our office. As you know, the market for U.S. Treasuries is the largest market in the world at $28 trillion, and it's critical to the financial stability of the United States. There's actually a proposal for an entity to clear U.S. Treasury futures at the London Clearing House, which is overseen by the Bank of England. Some argue that the Bank of England would have control over a, heaven forbid, a default scenario in this critical market instead of the U.S. Is this?
Yeah, right there. That's huge. No politician has ever openly said that since 1933, and there weren't cameras on them back in 1933. But yes, the Bank of England essentially controls the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve controls all banks in the U.S., right? And that's essentially what enslaves you. That's where the motor vehicle code comes from, every revenue code that there is. It's beneficial use of the property that is held in trust, that being your property rights, essentially your estate, your right to property is held in trust. So you have to pay for permission to use everything. And that's belongs to watch my Magna Carta series, or watch pretty much any of the videos I do on law. I explain this is how it works. Your estate is hypothecated. You're presumed dead, and you, as a United States 14th Amendment citizen, are considered a trustee of the estate, part of the property of the state, not the heir or the executor of the estate. And so you are held as the surety for any kind of charges levied against the estate for improper use of the property by the administrators. Okay, because your body is actually considered part of the property of the estate. And you as a trustee are property of the estate, your body. So they tell you what to use or how to use your body, what to do with your body. They can mandate things for your body and all this stuff because you're considered an infant. Title I, Section 8 of the United States Code says the word person, human being, and individual all refer to an infant of the species Homo sapien at any stage of development. Because you're an infant, you're essentially under guardianship by the government. And this all goes back, it's ancient trust law that they're using against you, because the bankers all still live under that. They're sovereign. They live under common law. They use common law as the base to enslave you. And so they take control administratively of your estate through presumption of infancy and death, and several presumptions simultaneously. The heir, as the heir, you're considered dead, but as a U.S. franchise, right, as a U.S. elective franchise, you are considered a trustee of the estate that has been mortgaged to the Federal Reserve and international investors to back the currency that people erroneously call money or dollars, but actually is just a debt contract. That's why there's two parties and two signatures on every single piece of currency, because one represents the IMF, that would be the Secretary of Treasury, and one represents the debtor, the United States Corporation, which is the District of Columbia doing business as the United States. Interestingly enough, if you go to, let's see, I can pull this up real quick. Why not? This is one of the ways you know that the District of Columbia is doing business as the United States. It's going to be right here, Section 9-307. This is the Uniform Commercial Code, location of debtor, okay? And if we go down to Section H, H says location of the United States is located in the District of Columbia. That's where the United States is. So as a United States quote-unquote citizen, right, it doesn't mean you're a citizen of one of the United States. It means that you are a franchise of the District of Columbia, that you are a federal personnel, your corporate personnel on a deferred retirement program, and your estate, the estate of you as one of the original people, has been mortgaged to secure the issuance of debt currency. So hopefully I explained that properly, but that's pretty interesting. So what else you guys will find interesting is this. So in reference to, I was looking up to that Besant, like that whole interaction I just showed you, where the guy actually admitted the Bank of England would be the one who clears the debt, or the one who deals with the default. And I come across this article, and it's an independent journalist, and he says, Our concerns about the Act of 1871 fabrication are truth, because this is what a big deal that guy, that congressman saying this is that this was, whoa, what do you mean the Bank of England is going to be the one essentially administering the default or the bankruptcy in case of an economic collapse? And so it's got a lot of people wondering, like, what the hell is he talking about? I already know. I've known for years now what the hell he's talking about. It's what drives me to have this channel in the first place. But he rightly says that, let's see, he says during the Senate questioning, so blah, blah, blah. Hold on, where is it at? Okay, so one of the most interesting moments was during questioning when a senator told Besant that if the U.S. defaulted on its debt because our debt is unsustainable, the Bank of England would be the debt collector, which is what you guys just heard. Besant answered that he just learned of this a few days ago, and if confirmed, he would dissolve that. Well, he did not actually say that, at least not that I heard. I hope he does. And, you know, this is going to be a real test of seeing exactly whether or not, because Trump's still saying some crazy stuff that he's going to do that's gotten other presidents waxed before, and even after he's been elected. So this will be a test to see if he's serious, because if his Treasury Secretary does dissolve that, and which has got, because Besant worked for George Soros, okay? So I don't trust this guy at all. He's a billionaire, okay? He's a big financial guy. Don't trust him. But the fact that that was even brought up in a Senate confirmation hearing is like, okay, well, that's pretty interesting. And it was brought up because that's what he and that senator and Besant had been speaking about in their office. And what? Hold on. One more quarter says 1265 and commoners hold England's first parliament. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, because that's one of the revisions of the Magna Carta. We can totally get into that another time. But anyway, so they were speaking about this in the senator's office. And then you could tell Besant didn't really want to talk about it on camera. He got real fidgety. He's like, I'll give you my response to that question in writing, which is shady. And I don't like that. But anyways, this guy has a very accurate understanding. He says, the way I've understood the issue that the Act of 1871 formed a corporation separate from the nation. It did. And the Act of 1871, so you guys know, is the Organic Act that created the District of Columbia corporation. And he says it did not turn the country into a corporation. The nation still exists and is named the United States of America. That's absolutely true. The continental United States of America is and always has been what the nation is actually called. The United States is a doing business as name of the federal court of the District of Columbia as a result of the Organic Act of 1871. But beyond that, even prior to that, they did word magic, knowing that this was the intention the entire time. This is why the Constitution is a subversive document. The Articles of Confederation is our original Constitution, because even prior to being made a doing business as of the District of Columbia, the United States of America is the continental collection of the geographic collection of sovereign nation states that are in a confederate union. Okay. But the federal trust is also called the United States. And so they've always been doing that from the beginning. But like he says, the corporation's name is District of Columbia, but its trademark name, the United States, it trademarked the name United States as one of several doing business as alternate trade names, which is why location of debtor, which I just showed you guys, is the United States is located in the District of Columbia, because it's the corporation in the District of Columbia that the District of Columbia does business as. And just to confuse you guys, everybody in the world, not just Americans, but everybody in the world. The corporation was originally formed by a real government no, it wasn't. Not at all. It was formed by the tyrant Lincoln in order to dissolve the Confederate Union and turn it into a corporate one, because he's a piece of shit. This worked well until it didn't, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, so he's kind of misinformed about this, and I can prove everything that I'm saying I have before. But yeah, like he says, the fact that the U.S. Senator openly acknowledged this arrangement, the Bank of England acting as a potential debt collector, brings the underbelly of the financial system into stark focus. Yeah, well, it should be. Like, this is what I literally am trying so hard to get everybody that I come across to understand how the system works, that all of this shit's one big illusion. You're basically in a pretend land of corporate fiction, hence the name Burn the Corporate Fiction, right? And you're playing with monopoly money, and everybody's just acting. You're acting as an agent of the United States. You're acting as a trustee of your own estate. That's why all the, acting governor, acting this, acting that, acting prosecutor, acting district, because they're just acting and they're not actually in that position. It's just all corporate pretend world that you're in a paper hell of dead things. So anyways, the Federal Reserve, blah, 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 IRS enforces. So what I want to show you, he says this. He says, will the Trump-Vance administration work to abolish the Federal Reserve and reclaim control over our monetary system and end the era of debt-based enslavement? The Grok response. This is hilarious. When we asked the question above, the Grok reply was straightforward. The statement you've provided contains elements that are rooted in popular conspiracy theory, right? But it significantly misrepresents historical and legal facts regarding the 1871, right? So let's go down to what happens about the debt, because I'm gonna fuck this up. Hold on. Okay, so it doesn't say. It says the corporate personhood exists in U.S. law, but it relates more to business. No, the United States is a corporation. That's United States Code. I forget which title it said, but I have it. It says it's a federal corporation. But check this out. I'm going to show you guys. Let's see. So it says that it misrepresents the facts. Well, let's see about that, because what I have here for you guys, again, as I usually do, is misrepresents facts about the Bank of England owning our debt and shit. Check this out. This is congressional record straight from the government printing office from congress.gov. It's March 9th, 1933. Page 83. You guys can look this up yourself in the second paragraph. We're going to go down here where they're talking about how the money is going to, or the money is not money. They're changing it over to debt notes. And what he says is the money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people in the nation. That's your estate. That's your right to property. It's mortgaged. So if you look up the ancient law of mortgage, which the law of mortgage goes all the way back to ancient Greece, whatever's mortgaged, or basically by mortgaging your estate, they've hypothecated in order to back the currency, which means they're using it as collateral. That collateral is essentially held in trust. Okay. Now, while the mortgage is outstanding, the lender gets beneficial use of the property. So say it's a farm that you mortgaged or that you used as collateral, right, in order to obtain the loan. And the farm is held in trust. Well, while the loan is outstanding, everything that grows on that farm, the lender, the banker, gets it as part of the agreement. This is how mortgage works. So now replace the farm with your property rights or your estate, which is what it actually is, at which estate is everything you own at law. So your car, your house, your body, everything. That's what income tax is. You're being charged a fee for the use of your body to labor. It's an estate tax. That's what it falls under. That's what a W-4 falls under. It's a gift and estate tax, right? W-2, all of it. It's all under gift and estate. So while that loan is outstanding, the bankers get beneficial use of the property. That's why the quote unquote judge, who's actually just a special administrator of your estate, sits on a bench. The Latin word for bench means bank. And the bank gets beneficial use of the property through revenue codes while the loan is outstanding. And all of it's all private corporations. Now it's all just one big corporation, all organized under the private corporation of the United States through the 14th Amendment. And so even from the municipal corporation you live in to the corporation you work for, it's all one big corporation. That's really what it is. So anyway, that's our law this morning, our law lesson. We haven't, the law fix for my subscribers who haven't gotten too much law recently because we've been delving into other things. I know it's boring for a lot of you, but you know what? The reason we're in this fucking mess and you bitch about who the president is and all that stuff is because you don't know the law. That's why. If you knew the law, wouldn't be in this situation. You know, James Madison was asked what type of government is it that we've been given, and he said a republic if you can keep it. And George Washington was standing nearby, and he said, in order to keep it, every man must know the law. Well, that includes woman now, since you guys have gotten your skin in the game with the whole suffrage movement and everything. It's everybody needs to know the damn law, right? So anyways, now we're going to get back to, but I hope, does anybody have any questions on that before I move on? So let's see here. Rethink says, I don't do the play the victim card. That claim, if made, falls on deaf ears. And though it may be true, the three of us don't see the issue as an issue at all, are the people that help remove it. The three of us don't see the issue as an issue at all, are the people that help remove it. Right. Well, you know, at the end of the day, man, the only reason this is an issue, if everybody realized that you have a house, very first place, there would be no state without a collection of e-states, right? And your house is the very first political subdivision of the states, your very first layer of political protection. That's why back in the 1800s and 1700s, like, you had a house and you had a seal. If you were somebody that was eligible to be like the governor or the mayor or somebody like that, if you had your shit together, you had a house and you had a seal, okay? And so no contract it would be binding without your seal, because it's actually a covenant, right? And you were the representative, the legal representative of your house when it came to the rest of the world. And everybody was under common law, and unless you engaged in contract that took, you know, where you contracted your rights away. And essentially you held court. So like somebody wronged you, they trespassed on your property, you filed an at-law action called a declaration of trespass, right? And you took that person to court. There was no judge. It was just a magistrate. You were the sovereign of the court unless the defendant requested a jury. Then once the jury came, the jury's the sovereign of the court, and the jury is the one with the tribunal power. I have so many common law books and treaties that prove that, right? There was no judge. There was no state pressing charges or none of that shit. Okay. The judges that you had in like the Supreme Court and like the circuit courts were dealing with business primarily, or no, yeah, that's it. They were dealing with business primarily. And that's how that was supposed to work. Right. So, and if it was a major crime called an infamous crime, then in order to be indicted, there had to be a grand jury, you know, and in order to be indicted for anything or to have any sort of case against you, there had to be a signed sworn affidavit before a magistrate with a witness. And you had to have an actual victim. There were no pretend victimless crimes for anything. There had to be a victim. So completely different ball game. You were sovereign. You were free, and your rights ended where another's began. You owned your property completely and entirely. There was no property tax. And while you were on your property, if anyone, the sheriff, the president of the United States, came on your property unwarranted, you could do whatever you want. That's just how it worked. That's what freedom actually is. That's what we had. That's what we lost, because people do not like to learn the law. You can still hold court if you learn how to use common law. You can still do it. You can still file. You get a traffic ticket, go down and file an at-law counterclaim for trespass on the case, which means they're trying to administer your estate. They're trying to steal from you by pretending like they have the ability to administer your estate. It's called trespass on the case. You file a counterclaim, and then you hold court in their courtroom. I've helped somebody do it. He didn't pursue it to the end, but when he did, they didn't know what to do until they figured out that I was helping him, and he didn't actually know what he was doing. He didn't listen to me and didn't do his shit. But it's also worked where there's a $6,800,000 lien on 4 court officers' entire estates over in Colorado. And I've shown that several times too. It works. It works if you learn it. It 100% works. Anyway, I'm going off, and that's what I'm passionate about, is the law stuff. So I always end up bringing it back there every single time. So let's move on to more news while we have time, shall we? So this is interesting. This is why I tell you guys, the bullet we dodged, regardless of what you think of Kamala, the bullet or of Trump, the bullet we dodged with Kamala, who didn't know the plan because she wasn't told the plan because she was too stupid. It was literally overnight communism that we were facing. And China already prepped the truth, because China owns China owns most of our government. You know what I mean? But let's put it this way. The communists own most of our government. They have no real nation. They own most of the Republican Party and the entirety of the Democratic Party. So there is no two parties. There's just the one party for the most part, right? And Trump is the only politician I've ever seen that stood up and told the World Economic Forum to fuck off with climate change. He really did that, right? And he told them we're not gonna succumb to climate alarmists or sacrifice our national sovereignty. He's like, yeah, we got the Trillion Trees Initiative. That's what we'll do for climate change. But we're not going to be submitting to the World Economic Forum or any of that stuff. He's like, it's not happening. So, and he did a whole speech. That's why they did the 2020 election bullshit. He's the only one I've ever seen do that. Right now, he's not going to teach you common law, and he's not going to claim your estate for you. But let me tell you what we were facing with Kamala. So China already positioned all their troops. Oh no, dude, you're good. Don't worry about it. You didn't sidetrack it, man. I sidetracked it by getting into the law stuff because I get passionate. If everybody knew the law, you wouldn't have to bitch about who the president is. None of that shit. You know, we're not even supposed to vote for the president. We're supposed to vote for a county elector. You have to be a landowner too. So you can't be some like liberal retard, right? You can't be some welfare mooch and be able to have a say in who gets elected anywhere, right? Tell me how smart that is. That's way better, right? Yeah, you should have a vested interest in the community before you're even allowed to vote on decisions. And no matter what you voted for, the person you voted for never had authority over your personal rights or your property. The only thing the government did was facilitate business within the state and internationally, which means also between the states. And that's what the federal and the state governments did. And we had state militaries. There was no central federal military unless we were at war. Okay, there was a Navy. But like if a military was conscripted, it came from Michigan had an army. Or think about the Civil War. They each had their own regiment. They each had their own military that they submitted for the Civil War, like the Virginia Army, basically, the Michigan Army, the South Carolina Army. It was the states had in our original Constitution, it talks about it, right? In our original statutes, it talks about training the army of the state and all that stuff. So anyways, you elected a county elector. You had to be a landowner. You couldn't be a dumbass, which you wouldn't be. You wouldn't have an estate and a house and a seal and be a landowner in the first place if you were a welfare mooch or a dumbass. And then you elected a county elector, and that county elector voted for the president and also voted for the other offices that needed to be filled. And none of those offices could affect your private property rights or your personal rights, period. The only people that could ever take away your liberty or your property were your peers, which peer means fellow sovereigns. That's why the royals are recorded in Burke's peerage. That's where their bloodline, because peer doesn't mean equal unless you're also sovereign, then it does mean equal, but peer means sovereign. And that's what they mean by jury of your peers. So the only person that could ever affect your freedom was a jury of your peers. And there had to be a signed sworn affidavit with witness in order to even bring a case against you. So, yeah, exactly. Well, it's a welfare. Well, that's it. That's how they do it. So Dorian Grace is a welfare mooch, seeing as they pay you out of that set decay. But the set decay V is, it's a benefit. They created that through the mortgage of your estate. So when you accept that benefit, you're agreeing to be the infant. It's an ancient Roman maxim called beneficium abstinende, which means he who accepts the benefit forgoes the inheritance. They actually use this in ancient Rome to get out of paying heavy debts. Like if you're about to inherit an estate that had a shit ton of debt and you didn't want to deal with that debt, you would agree to accept a portion or a benefit from the estate in order to not be the heir and then take on that debt. And it was actually used as a political tool, essentially. But they also use that to get you going to jail as a benefit. Okay, it's called a compelled benefit because you're an infant and they're trying to straighten you up and teach you and make sure you stay in line. And they have to take care of the property, which is why we have the nicest prisons in the world here in the United States, which isn't saying much, but still, if you accept that benefit, you agree to be an infant. So all these people, all these charlatans you hear about, oh, I'm going to take control of my trust and I'm going to use the trust. And you cannot. It's not yours. It never was yours. It was created through the hypothecation of your property rights. So if you accept anything from it, then you are agreeing to be the infant and to have no controlling interest over your own property. It's that simple. And people who say otherwise are idiots. I'm sorry, they're idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. So anyway, I digressed again, but check this out. This is what they were prepared. They already had troops in here. They still have troops in here right now. China and South American communist country, Brazilians and Venezuelans, and these are military. Why do you think there's single military age men coming over our border here in the United States? Look what's going on over in the UK and in Canada, Canada and the European Union and stuff, dude. Those are fucking hostile military forces that are coming over and occupying. So check this out. So you guys all know about China buying up a bunch of American farmland, right? And Bill Gates, who's basically a communist Chinese. But this is interesting about that, where the farmland is that they bought.
Why is nobody talking about this part right here of the interview with Dr. Phil? Y'all watch this.
Look at this map. I did a show about this. The red is where Chinese government has funded buying major farmland. Yeah. And then superimposed on that are some of our most strategic military bases. And you can see there's Dugway Proving Ground. That's military equipment, biological, chemical weapons. They're surrounding it. Utah Test Training Range, the largest supersonic authorized restricted airspace in the United States. Whiteman Air Force Base, B-2 Spirit Stealth Bomber Base, missile drone operations. Yeah. MQ-9 Reaper, Global Strike Command 3, Fort Liberty, Airborne Special Operations Forces, Rapid Deployment. We've allowed them to come in and buy up agricultural land, wind farms, no wind, no blades on some of the towers, but they're surrounding our military bases. Right. We've allowed that to take place.
Why do you think they were stationed there? Why do you think they bought up all that land and then had millions of military-age Chinese immigrants come over the border over the last 5 years? Dude, we were about to be taken out. Guess what? If this country falls and our original founding documents fall, and there is no more way back. There is no more going back to Kansas. Okay? None. Right now, because this is the only nation on earth in the history of the world that we know of where the people are the source of sovereignty. Okay? Because every other country in the world, it's some royal or some emperor, which is basically a royal, or some dictator that's empowered by a foreign royal or emperor. But only here, enshrined in our founding documents, are the people the sovereignty. We have no king. We have no emperor, even though the presidential office is now imperial because of fucking scumbag Abraham Lincoln and then the syphilitic, crippled FDR, both the communist piece of shit that he is. The very first executive order ever issued was General War Order Number 1, which was issued by Abraham Lincoln to start the Civil War. So, but we have our founding, that's not in our founding documents. That's just assumed power that they took and the northern states went with because they're essentially manufacturing. Remember what I said about cities being the big trick and dependency being the source of bondage, right? Well, yeah, of course they joined the corporate union because there was a bunch of wealthy fucking magnates and industrialists that wanted communism because, why have slavery when you can just have people willingly be slaves, wage slaves? That's the whole idea. So but in our founding documents, none of that. And the only reason they have that power is because we allowed it. And the way we allowed it was by not learning the law. The very first thing Michigan did, aside from grandfathering probate in, because it's part of England common law, therefore it became part of American common law, and they didn't have to put it in the founding documents, which allows them, that's probate is how they take control of your estate and administer it through presumption of infancy, or say you're a drunkard or an imbecile or a distracted person's one of the things, spendthrift, or an infant, which means you don't know how to manage the affairs of your state as well. You don't have to be a child to be an infant. You can be an infant as a 50-year-old. Right? It means that you are incapable of managing your own affairs or representing yourself at law. So that's how they were able to do that. That's how Lincoln was able to do that, because people forgot or they just stopped learning law. And the very first thing Michigan did, aside from grandfathering probate in, was start creating universities and schooling institutions so they could start making it so people didn't learn the law, making people dependent on them for education so they could teach them stupid shit, the wrong shit, right? Period. That's what they ended up doing everywhere. That's why control of education, history, and money are so important, because all three of those things basically sum up the law. History and money, that's what makes the money, the monetary policy determines the type of law you're under. And because all law regards property. And all crime is a form of theft. You kill somebody, you stole their life. You assault somebody, you stole their bodily autonomy. You take something from somebody, well, you just stole from them. It's all theft. Okay? Mark Passio says that's a very profound insight. And it's true, because all law regards the disposition or use of property. There is no law, and that includes your body. Okay? So the type of monetary system you have determines the law you're under. Your relationship to your estate or your status determines the law you're under. If you have absolute title to all of your property and nobody is charging you for the use of it, then you are sovereign, and that's under common law. Okay? If you are in a usufructuary situation, which means the title split and the superior claim is held by somebody else, such as, when you register your car, you give it to the government and they force you to put their commercial advertising, their plates, which is linked to your Social Security trust account, which was also created from the mortgage of the registering of your property, right? That being the birth certificate, because that's where you registered your body. They were able to mortgage that and use it to create the Social Security investment trust. And so you register your car, put the commercial advertising on the back of it, and now they have the superior claim in the title, and you have to use that property the way they tell you. And if you do not, they fine and fee you. And beyond even not using it, just renewing your plates and renewing your permission to use it is a fine and fee on the use of the property. And that's called feudalism. Okay? So that's debt slavery. You're indentured. All right? But I digress. You see that shit? That fucking China bought up all the farmland around all the major military installations. And like Dr. Phil said, and so, like, they've got a solar farm or a wind farm, and the windmills don't even have fans on them. They don't have blades on them or nothing. That's because that's not why they bought that property. And no, so, but I will address the reparations. So you guys are having a little thing in there. He's actually right. Reparations that's a dumb idea. That's stupid. Like, how would you even make that happen? You're going to basically take from me for something I didn't do to give to somebody that nothing happened to. It makes no sense. That's dumb. That's also Marxism. That's, and I'm sure the person on the receiving end, give me free shit, the gimme dats, gimme this, gimme that. Of course they're going to want that. Doesn't matter who it is, right? But it's part of cultural Marxism. That's a justification to be able to reach in and take more for somebody. It's a form of welfare for no reason. It's unjustified. It's absolutely unjustified. Regardless of what you think about the historical accounts around why the reparations are asked for, the concept and practice is Marxist. It's communist. And no, it makes no sense. It is not just in any sense of the word. They could never be just. How would you even determine that? Right? So what if my ancestors, suppose the whole thing, the whole historical account was actually the way you're taught in history, which it's not at all, not even close. But supposing it was, how would you determine that? Suppose my ancestors came here after that was all said and done with, right? Are we going to do genealogy tests on everyone? Are we going to go ahead and fucking, you got to trace your lineage back and prove that your family wasn't here? It's dumb. You could never be put into practice, and anybody suggests that it could is a fucking commie or a welfare mooch, period. That's it. Does anybody disagree with that? How can you disagree with that? There's no way to logically put that shit into, that's disgusting. Foreskin reparations, no, you know what? They can keep it, dude. Fuck, they can keep it, man. I don't even want it. That's fucking nasty. Oh God. All right, you guys went way off the reservation with that shit. So we're not even gonna show any more of the comments on that. And so Rethink says we all shades and races have been bossed. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. It's fucking white Christians being in the Barbary trade, and yeah, absolutely. So, everybody just needs to get over that shit. It's none of us are doing it now, and none of us have had it done too. In fact, no, I take that last statement back. All of us are slaves right now to the central banking cartel. All of us. So everybody, we're all unified under one unified system of slavery, or uniform system of slavery. It's literally called Uniform Commercial Code. And it is literally a system of debt slavery based on the hypothecation of your right to property. It's insane, right? Yeah, Dorian says, fuck the past. Yeah, learn from it. We need to know the past, but don't sit there and act like the past is, you know what I mean? Like you're entitled to something that happened 400 fucking years ago. That is ridiculous. You know what I mean? That's like me going to the Romans and being like, because I'm Irish, I need reparations. You know what I mean? Like Rome isn't even, yeah, it's stupid. Or to the, English even, it's just dumb. Dumb idea. Nothing happened to me. Nothing happened to my direct ancestors. Nothing happened to anybody's direct ancestors concerning that. At least not, in developed civilized world or the developed civilized world in countries. So you guys got me ranting on shit. I got a couple more things I want to go through real quick, and then we'll see about ranting some more. But this is my point. So there's another aspect to consider. So this actually is just recent, just from a couple days ago, right? And so a Florida abductions, Fox News, I guess. I thought I pulled up New York Times, but I'm actually glad I didn't. So Florida abduction report leads, not that Fox News is much better, but Florida abduction report leads to discovery of U-Haul van filled with mostly Chinese migrants, right? It says the migrants were mostly Chinese citizens along with citizens from Brazil, Cuba, Ecuador, police said Friday. Well, what they don't tell you, but what is actually the story with this, is these Chinese citizens were military-aged males, okay? And they were in the back of a U-Haul truck, just been dropped off here. It says that they believe that they were dropped off, not by sea, but something. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just showing this to give you a point. I want you guys to all consider this. How easy do you think it is for Chinese people to get out of China? Right? How easy do you think that is? Do you think they can just waltz out of China whenever they want? Especially military-age males? Hell no. So why are there so many coming over here? They're not escaping. I can tell you that, not in those numbers. I mean, they're locked the fuck down. They can't even leave their neighborhood without facial recognition. Look it up. Right? So how are they getting out of China? Are they escaping? No, they're being fucking sent here. They're sent here. Like, you guys have to see this. They're literally, they had staged the entire chessboard and put us in check. That's what was happening. That is what is happening, still happening, right? And we were so close to what they wanted in 2016 in the first place, which was just a fucking declare martial law. They're looking for any reason to be able to declare martial law. It'll never be our own military, which is still a foreign military because the United States is a foreign corporation. But still, it's made up of our neighbors, our family members, our friends, okay? And the majority of military members wouldn't have, my little brother's in the Navy, okay? He despises it. He does. He hates, he says, I'm a fucking corporate slave to the United States, but he hates it. But he can even vouch that in the Navy, there's no way these people would turn their guns on us. So what is necessary in order to topple they have to, in order for worldwide communism to succeed, the United States has to fall. It has to. All right. And they have to take our guns. They have to. And so in order to do that, they're kind of figuring, since, people are not falling for the libtarded gun scare, hoaxes and all that stuff that they keep trying every time they have the opportunity, like, we need stricter gun control laws, right? And people are not falling for it, the majority of people. And so they know that they're not going to be able to legislate it away like they have in other countries. All right. And actually, I had one of my subscribers, I stand corrected about Canada. I know you guys don't have access to the same type that we do, but this guy said, this one, if you're in the chat tonight, let me know. I forget what your screen name is or your YouTube name, but you said, listen, I'm a Canadian, but I live out in the country. He says it's some dumbass city slickers that fucked everything up and actually participate in the communist government. He says, also, I have guns out here. You know what I mean? And I get it, dude. There's some tough ass Canadians. Like I said, you guys kicked their asses in the War of 1812. That's historical fact. But most countries willingly gave up their guns. We never will. So this is why they're staging this foreign military here, is because they were and may still be planning on using the United Nations peacekeeping troops. Well, first it would start with what would be termed as a civil war from the inside, even though it'd be foreigners that were let in that turn on us. They'd frame it as a civil war, and that would allow the government to then call in the UN peacekeeping troops, who would be more than happy to turn their guns on American citizens. So that's the direction that was going, and I'm sure not everybody will agree with me, but I see the writing on the wall. Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about right now. The China troops ready to go. That's what I'm saying. Is we need to get them the fuck out of here. That's why there's so many military age men, because our troops would never turn their guns on us. That's why we have military age men from all these countries that despise us in the United States. And to keep it fair to our international brothers and sisters in the Western world, that's why you have all of those foreigners in your countries as well, to subdue you, subjugate you, and ultimately replace you. The Great Replacement Migration. Remember, I showed you guys that document a few episodes back, streams back, whatever you want to call this. I don't know, episode, stream, whatever. Same show, just different day. But yeah, so they're trying to replace you and subdue you using foreigners who are just grateful to not be in their shithole country anymore. Okay? And I'm sorry to say that if you're from a shithole country, but hey, here's the whole point. Fix your fucking country. Okay? Because guess what? In every country, we have the same thing. There's more of the people than there is the government. So, and fix your country before you go fuck somebody else's country up. How about that? How about we try that on for size? See if that works out. All right? Because you don't have a right to go fucking act entitled in somebody else's country and expect them to conform to and cater to you just because you ran away from your shithole country that you guys allowed to become a shithole. Doesn't make sense. Does that make sense to anybody here? Huh? No, I wouldn't think so. Yeah, it says UK has 14% migrants. What the fuck they gonna do? Ask yourself, what percent does the US have? Oh, a shit ton. Shit ton. If I was to say percentage wise, I'd probably actually, no, I'd say probably about the same percentage, probably about 15%. But the difference being is, and I'm actually sticking up for you guys. I'm saying they need to get the fuck out of your guys' country. You know, just because they fuck their country up, get out of your country. But no, you guys can still, but that's why they're bringing them in. I'm not saying they're a critical mass yet, but are they still coming in your country, Dorian? Are they still coming into your country? And that's the problem. They're still coming into mine. So that's the issue, right? And it's all by design. It's not like they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts because they want to help people from downtrodden, war-torn countries. No, that's not why. In fact, the very elites that are allowing them into our countries are the same elites who caused their countries to become war-torn through intelligence agency staged coups d'etats and spreading freedom and democracy and whatnot in the form of bombs and munitions. Right, liberating people from their lives. So trust me, we're on the same page with that. I'm saying that been plenty of Trump meme on it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure how many are in this country either, but I know that our border has been wide the fuck open, so much so that in Texas and El Paso they were actually able to construct like an elaborate tunnel that took them over a year to build, that they openly constructed because nobody was paying attention. They just filled it in with concrete like the last couple days, but this thing was like immense, and like they had to be out there with actual construction equipment building this fucking tunnel across the border, and nobody noticed just because it was wide the fuck open. Nobody noticed, like just wide open. Right? Like, hey, yeah, do whatever you want. In fact, there's been a couple of reporters that have literally walked down to drove down to the border and just walked back and forth across the border a bunch of times. Like, yeah, nobody's coming to stop me or question me. So, I mean, can pretty much do whatever I want. Yeah, it's insane, dude. And that's all by design. Make no mistake. And that's why, especially over in, especially in Europe, man, like you guys are especially in the UK, like I'm a UK mutt, you know what I mean? I'm English, Irish, Scottish mutt, right? And you guys are tough as fucking nails, you know what I mean? The Scots, the Celts, and the English, you know what I mean? Shit, you guys were the empire on which the sun never sets. Kick ass is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to incite violence, YouTube, or any of that stuff. I'm just saying, you're only going to be able to push those people so far over there. That's all I'm saying before they nut up on you. 40 to 80 million. Holy shit. Well, shit, we've only got like 380 million people in this country. So, fuck, my math's not mathing right now. I'm tired. Well, let's see. That's like 80 million, 380 million. So we'll say 32, 4. So shit, that's like 25%. That's over 25%. That's, I hope that's wrong. He said, forget the Olympics. Diddy got nicked. We already suspected about Hidden City. Next thing, tunnels lead into all mega film stars, etc. Then a fire. Listen, I totally agree. That LA fire is probably part of a huge cover up, erase the evidence type deal. I do not doubt that. But everything that they do is multifaceted, as you guys well know. So it's not just going to be about getting rid of the evidence. It's going to be about get rid of the evidence and also how can it make a bunch of money on it, and also enslave the native people there. That's how they do things. They never just do things to make money or to enslave or to hide their evidence. They're going to do all the trifecta. They're going to make sure they cover all the bases. So it's, hey, we can kill people, burn people out, take their land, make a shit ton of money, and hide all of our heinous crimes simultaneously. And we get to test out our new lasers and our UN paid fucking stooges. So All right, so that's the Chinese. Now, on to some good news. How about some good news, guys? You want some good news? Because we just been all doom and gloom and slavery this morning. So apparently it's come to my attention. I didn't know this, and I don't know if anybody else knew about this. But I'm going to take that comment down in a second, too, so you can see the screen better. And I'm going to have to speed this up because I don't know if they'll copyright strike me or whatever. And that's what sucks about doing YouTube and Rumble. So my Rumble subscribers, I apologize, but
no mercy, no escape.
This is interesting.
Nice to see you.
So let's see where this goes. And apparently this isn't the only place or the only person who has instituted this, but it's going to be the death penalty for pedophiles. How about that?
Again, too.
You just reintroduced a bill where convicted pedophiles and child sexual predators would get the death penalty in certain states. Your quote, "The days of inaction against those who prey on children and sexually abuse adults are over. Pedophiles deserve the death penalty. They deserve to rot in jail where they belong. No mercy, no escape." 2 out of 3 bills would require the death sentence. Do you expect this to pass?
I'd be surprised if it doesn't, but I want to just voice my concern on this. When I first introduced this, before President Trump had really mentioned it on the campaign trail, I was really shocked at the level of my colleagues actually did not want to support this, and they hid behind the death penalty and really forcing the Supreme Court to argue this. And what I would say to those people is, if we have a truly free and fair society and we use children and innocent...
Now, this could be why they're covering up the evidence over there, because that's pretty serious. I mean, that's a major move. That's putting a lot of politicians and actors and actresses and bankers and pretty much most of the elite at serious risk, because now the death penalty is on the table if you're caught for any of this shit. So this means also one other thing for sure, that Epstein's list is never going to be released, right? Especially since this is New York, which is probably where 80% of his clients came from. Most likely Wall Street, if I was to guess. So with this being introduced, it hasn't passed yet. Oh no, this is Florida. I'm sorry, this is Florida. Still, there's probably a great deal of those because there's several. There's Idaho. Idaho did it. Florida is reintroducing it, and there's another state. I pulled it up. We'll get to also. And so and it seems to be a popular trend of introducing this. Now, last time this was introduced, guess what? 100 Democrats voted against it. I'm sure some Republicans did too. Don't get me wrong. Because like I said, I don't favor one or the other. I think they're both just one fucking party in general for the most part. But seriously, 100 Democrats voted against. So how do you vote against this bill? How do you like what does that say about you? How are you going to pretend I'm just humanitarian and I don't believe in the death penalty? I guess you could take that route, but really though? Well, how is it like passing gun laws? How so? How is the death penalty for heinous criminals like passing gun laws? I need to. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you if you can tell me what you mean by that, because that's actually a good point. It might be used to sneak in a bunch of New World Order agendas. Yeah, that's usually like how they like to fill stuff with a bunch of, like, the last immigration or the last omnibus bill that they tried to pass was absolutely ridiculous. It was like $100,000 for, or I'm sorry, like $100 million for Rainbow Warrior, something in a school like down in Brazil. It made no sense. It was like $100 million for some Rainbow Warrior fucking agenda down. And you guys know what I mean by Rainbow Warrior because we're on YouTube, but down in Brazil or some South American country. Like, there's a bunch of shit in that bill that was ridiculous. Created an asylum agent, basically, that would go down to the border and be able to grant asylum on site, which is the first thing you need on the path to citizenship. So they could have totally, all the Chinese military age men coming in and just be like, you're a citizen and you get asylum. You get asylum and you get asylum and you get asylum. Like, just, that was a really shitty bill. this could be a Trojan horse. I'll give you that. But damn, is it a good start? You know, I mean, think about it. Think about how many politicians, actors and actresses, and Wall Street bankers that this immediately puts at risk, you know. But let's see, the guilty. Yeah. A lot of your comments I can't really do on YouTube, man, but I hear you over there. So
as a marker on whether or not our justice system is functioning, please understand that if you have someone that takes away a child's innocence, that they're essentially murdering that person's soul. Those people never recover. And so I would hope that my colleagues can really, truly reflect deeply on what their convictions are, that they will support this. And I think after talking to President Trump, I think that he wouldn't have an issue signing something
another
like this.
double-edged thing, though, is if this does pass, it guarantees that the offenders are going to make sure there's nobody left to talk about anything they do. So it's kind of, but still, though, how could you vote against this? Unless, you know, you're an honest politician and it does have worse shit in it, in the bill that's hidden in there, slid in there, like you were saying, like a Trojan horse that makes it not worth it. But that would have to be some seriously bad stuff to make it not worth it, you know, in my opinion. So, but yeah, that to me, for now, until I actually read the bill, which, you know, I'll probably do that later on when I wake up. We'll see if there's anything hidden in there. If it's available to be read, which it should be, right? Yeah, I'll check it out for you guys and I'll get back to you on whether or not they're sliding some bullshit in there. All right, let's see here. What is this one? Yeah, so this is Tennessee. So check this out. This is pretty cool. This is from last year, but still, I was totally unaware this was going on around the country. And, you know, honestly, they should do this shit. You know, it was interesting on a side note, since we're talking about passing laws and stuff like that, for my viewers in the UK, I was watching a thing where the Labour Party, and I'm sure this is true, the very first thing the Labour Party did when they got into power was they changed the Treason Act to remove the death penalty. Isn't that interesting? That was the very first thing they did, was change the Treason Act so that the death penalty wasn't in it anymore. It's almost like they knew this hammer was going to end up coming down eventually to where they're all getting popped. And, you know, is anything even happening to them over there? Good morning, Eldon. How you doing, man? Is anything even happening to all these Labour Party people that were, you know, caught and given suspended sentences and shit? Is there any kind of like backlash, or people like, what's going on over there with that? Because, you know, it's pretty heinous. And I feel like even facilitating, like I just seen that they voted against, I think I have that actually. Let me see if I didn't pull it up. Yeah, they voted against investigating the how do I put this? The groovy situation, grooving, right? But replace the V with an M. That whole situation over in they overwhelmingly voted against any investigation of that situation. So Dorian says in 1971, an FCO memorandum known as FCO 30-1048 was drafted. The document details how the UK would surrender sovereignty if it were to join the ECC. Isn't that why you guys did the Brexit, though? You guys aren't part of the EU. Oh, the European Economic. So you said in January 1st, 1973, signed the UK over. Edward Heath signed the UK over to the European Economic Community and deposed the monarch, which is true. You know, but I don't think the monarch's ever actually deposed. Don't they have an advisory, what is it called? Like an advisory council to every prime minister? They never lose power, dude. There's no way. They're still in power everywhere. Like, they're the ones who really control the majority of the shit that's going on, that we, like, even everybody wants to blame like Israel or, you know, all that situation for stuff. But the truth is that country honestly exists at the behest of the Crown District of London. It was created by it in the first place, you know, So, I mean, I feel like that's one of the greatest tricks that the royal family has pulled on the world, is making them think that they're just like a novelty or a mascot for the country, when really I think that, and they're not even English, they're fucking German. But I think that they're, yep, all just a smokescreen. Yeah, that's what I think. Just like the UCC. Yeah, you guys probably have a similar thing over there to the UCC, I would imagine, uniform, because you're in the international securities market. Everything's based on the dollar because of our deal with OPEC. So everything's run through the Securities and Exchange Commission. You guys have to have a form of uniform commercial code. Absolutely. In fact, we did our bills of exchange acts and stuff. We mirrored ours based off of yours. So you really started the whole security system in the first place, and then we kind of took it over. Well, not we, but yes, you're under the crown for sure. All right. So we've got, we're all kind of under the crown though, not just you. Anyway, through the Bar Association. I fucking hate the Bar Association. They're communists. I actually meant to pull up this congressional report where they did a whole congressional report in the United States back when we had, semi-honest politicians, and they actually cared about the republic. And one of them came forward and pointed out that the Lawyers Guild is a communist, openly communist organization. The Bar Association's communist, dude. I always said they're the ones who set up this entire network of ensnarement, debt slavery. There would be no central bank without the Bar Association in any country, actually. So that's a fact. So starting July 1st of last year in 2024, convicted, you see that, in Tennessee can receive the death penalty. Florida also passed this law. Time to pass in all 50 states. Where else have we got it? See, now it says it was passed in Florida, but it says she reintroduced it. So it must have got shot down in Florida, which is kind of to be expected, I guess. We probably can't watch that. Idaho House passed a bill that would do the same thing. Let's see what he has to say.
House. Representative Bruce Skog, a Republican from Napa, who co-sponsored the bill, along with Representative Josh Tanner of Eagle, said that House Bill 515 is designed to give the steepest penalties to the most heinous of crimes committed against children 11 years of age and younger, and that the penalties would be in line with that of first-degree murder.
There is a deep, dark side in our culture, and it's our job to protect the children. There are times when things are so wicked.
See, there has to be. So they would kind of be like shooting themselves in the foot, unless there is kind of like a counter culture against it. I mean, I get it. All politicians are somewhat crooked for the most part, and all ultra wealthy people are generally, but there's got to be a line. There's got to be a line where, like, even those guys are like, all right, man, you guys can't fuck with, you can't do that. That's it. And this, I mean, is seriously dangerous for, I am making a joke, but I'm also being very serious that this puts a lot of actors, actresses, Wall Street people, and all in a lot of serious, and especially politicians, in a lot of danger, because this, I mean, it's a capital offense now. So, but and as well, that also makes sure that that book, that list, is never going to come out. So, but yeah, I thought that was a little bit of good news. Let's move on to our international pizza lovers, shall we? A little bit, because I always got to be fair and cover some of what's going on across the pond. I guess this guy just got popped. When did this happen? January 12th, Dorian. You guys might be happy about this. This guy was a former Labor Party politician, says, and he just got caught. So let's see what he has to say. Oh, shit. I got to share the damn screen, don't I? Tripping.
Stephen will be.
All right.
You told this child that you was going to go and meet him.
That wasn't, because Stephen will be at work.
At 1 o'clock. you said that you was going to go and meet him at quarter to.
If we could, I don't know, trains, etc.
Yeah,
etc.
you see,
I don't know.
But wait, but here's the slippery thing. You said you had no intention, but now you concede that actually, yeah, I might have been planning to take this child to meet Stephen. So you admit that that's what you were trying to do.
I don't know his age.
You know his age accurately. This child regularly.
If I knew his actual age,
this
and
child.
I don't know that, then I wouldn't do anything. Obviously.
This child regularly told you that they were at school and they were doing school-related activities.
Yeah, but that's not the same as knowing age. I have never. I want to ask him what his age is, and I've never done that.
Yes, you did.
No, I have never done that.
Of course.
No, I have never done that. So I want to ask that question.
You've asked that question. I've read it. Clear and simple terms.
Anyway.
You know exactly how old this child was.
And you wanted this child to bring other children, so that you could abuse more than one child.
No.
You used to be that you used to be a veterans minister, didn't you?
Never happened.
Did you? Yeah. Yeah, we're all veterans, and do you know what? It makes me absolute sick that you had anything to do with our armed forces.
I haven't done anything. I'm not going to
that man is scared to death right now.
To do what? You're not going to do what? Going to do what?
I was going into town.
What don't you understand?
Oh, okay,
the reason you are not taking this child to have sex with them, no, stop it. The reason you are not meeting this child to have sex with them is because we've turned up.
I was just gonna play video games with him. I was just gonna make sure that he was gonna meet anybody else dangerous. You know, I mean, I was looking out for him. I mean, how many other ridiculous excuses do we hear? That's it. Yeah, I just noticed that, you know, he was vulnerable because he was talking to me, and I just wanted to show up to make sure nobody else talked to him, you know, because I was just looking out for him because I'm a politician after all, you know. That dude's scared to fucking death. Those dudes, good on him. Good on him. That's the type of heat you need. Yeah, put that shit on them guys. And we do it over here too. In America, we catch usually local politicians, pretty badass. Well, I mean, he could be a local politician. That might be why, but still, fuck yeah, it's awesome. Good on you guys. It's badass. So yes, tell it all now. I did see that video where he was asking as many politicians as would answer, but that's the issue in the first place, is the monetary policy. When you look at who controls the monetary policy and who controls the banks and stuff like that, it just kind of like they're bought and paid for. That's how it works, you know. And I'll tell you what, it all boils down to this. It goes back to what I originally said earlier in the stream, is if you knew the law, like if we all learn the law, right, and learn how to use common law, you can take care of all of that. It ends. The only way the monetary policy continues, the only way the bank is able to print debt notes, promissory notes, is by using your estate as collateral, by the hypothecation of your property rights. So if you reclaim your estate, they have nothing to use anymore. It ends. It's over with. If we all claim our estates, it's over with. That's the actual answer to the problem. The issue is getting people to actually learn the law, because that takes work and most people are lazy. In fact, as soon as I begin talking about law, people leave the stream, which is fine, whatever. I don't care, but it's just it's irritating actually, because I'm trying to teach you, you know, something that is the only thing that would actually solve everything that everybody bitches about, right? Everybody wants to be sovereign, but people do not want to learn how to be sovereign. And it's not just about learning how to use the law. The reason you're considered an infant is because you do not even know how to present yourself in court. If we were under common law, you couldn't defend yourself in court, and you couldn't bring an action against anybody in court. You couldn't conduct business. You couldn't act. You could not live as a sovereign. That's the problem in the first place. So you are, by the legal definition, an infant. It's not like they're just calling you that. The reason you have an attorney and the judge doesn't want to talk to you without an attorney is because it's like talking to a child without their parents around. That's actually what it is. You have to have that representative taking power of attorney over you and speaking for you, because the word attorn literally means, well, hold on. We'll just take a look at it real quick. Right? So we'll go to Webster's 1828 dictionary right here. And the word attorn, we'll zoom in on it for you guys. It's the only word, whatever. It's the only word, the only definition of attorn as an attorney is in feudal law. Remember I was talking about what feudal law is where the title's split and somebody has a superior claim and charges you for the use of your own property. In feudal law, to turn or transfer homage and service from one lord to another, as in from, say, the United States to the court, right? This is the act of feudatories, vassals, tenants, upon the alienation of the state. That's why you have to have an attorney. Did you know that? No. So you can bitch about Israel, you can bitch about Donald Trump, and you can bitch about all this stuff, but until you learn the law, it's like I tell my dad, you're bitching, and you know I have an entire library of law books, and it's not like you're an idiot. You can learn. I learned it. You can learn this stuff. Just fucking learn it and quit bitching about it. And I'm not saying this to be mean to you, tell it all now. I'm just saying, like, that's the solution, and I literally lose viewers when I talk about the law. It's insane. Oh, that shit's boring. What are you saying all them big words for? Huh? What are you, some kind of, I can't even say because we're on YouTube, but watch Idiocracy. It's literally where we live right now. We live at Idiocracy is a fucking documentary, right? The funny side note about that, they tried to find the dumbest shoe that wasn't too expensive to like use it in the movie where they pay the person who makes it or whatever. So they wanted to find like the most retarded looking shoe that would be worn in the future by people who were stupid in Idiocracy. And guess what they picked? They never knew it was going to become popular. It's Crocs. If you watch Idiocracy, they're wearing Crocs. Now what does everybody wear? Fucking Crocs. It is a documentary. But back to this, what I'm trying to point out is, yeah, Big Pine Sale says Crocs, exactly, is to attorn. So this is the problem. If you don't like where the money's going, okay, if you don't like the priorities of the people that are supposed to serve you, take it back. Take it back. If you don't want to learn this stuff because it's too much work, it took me years, and now I simplify it for you guys by basically being able to put it simply and having found all of this stuff already for you to read and look at and learn. But if that's too difficult, then don't bitch. You know what I mean? Because what is the point of bitching? It's not doing anything. It's called being black-pilled, where you just think everything sucks and everything's fucked. Right? It's miserable. It wants to be that way. Do something about it. Right? So, like, trust me, I know the priorities of politicians need to be with the people they serve, and they need to not even fuck where they send our money, which is not money, it's debt notes. They need to not be allowing a private central bank to issue debt contracts off the hypothecation of our property rights in the first fucking place. But guess why most people don't know that? Because they're fucking stupid and lazy. And when it comes down to it, even if they do learn this stuff, right, they're gonna be like, well, what if it doesn't work? What if they try to put me in jail? Because they're cowards also. The third aspect of it. It will work, first of all. You have to learn how to do it, and you also have to be willing to do it. It has worked. I've proven it. It works. It's just the fucking lazy, stupid cowards. That's what the fucking world is full of. And that's why these bankers and these corrupt politicians are running the show. Lazy, stupid fucking cowards. And I'm not calling any of you guys that. I'm just saying that's the issue, and it frustrates me. It's driven me nuts for years. That's you guys are here because you want to learn this stuff, and I get that, right? But people who bitch about it and don't, do anything, it's just like, well, fuck, dude. Like, listen, you want to do something? I'll show you. I'll show you how to do it, right? Let's do this shit. Let's get it going. So yeah, quantitative easing. What a joke. What a scam that is, right? But yeah, I thought you guys would find that interesting, the definition of a torrent. And so anyway, let's move on because I gotta get to bed. I'm sorry, you guys. I've been ranting quite a bit this morning, and I apologize. And I'm definitely not talking about you. You guys are here to learn stuff, and that's cool. So, it's the people that pop in for a second, hear law stuff, and they leave. That proves my point. It's like, oh, he's talking about boring law shit again. It's like, that's the problem. Yeah. But no, we'll continue to talk about other stuff. Let's talk about football. My team sported better than your team, right? Which I don't care if people like football or hockey or any of that stuff, but at least be as passionate about shit that matters as you are about shit that doesn't matter, and realize, never mind, I'm not even gonna probably insult a bunch of people, but it's the bread and circuses of Rome. That's what that generally is. Keep you placated and divided amongst each other, like people fighting over their favorite teams. Oh, dude's wearing a Steelers jersey, let's kick his ass. It's fucking awful. So last video, I'm going to show this guy puts the whole Labor Party on blast. So let's see if this gets the channel struck today, shall we? Let's see if we can do it. I don't actually want to do it, but I also want to show stuff, and I am so tired of CommieTube and having to self-censor. It's fucking dumb. All right, let's see what he has to say about the Labor Party. This is for Dorian and my friends in the UK, Jerry.
You won't hear in the
you guys.
Labour is a party of paedophiles. And I'm about to present Starmer's list of shame the political establishment ignores. I've been prompted to do this because do you notice that less than a week after a former Labour minister was arrested after a Facebook paedophile sting where he was accused of meeting a 15-year-old boy for sex, the MSM and the political establishment have simply moved on. Nothing to see here, folks.
Well, and just to answer Hugo's question real quick because it's important. Yes, it applies everywhere. That is where the law is based on the hypothecation of it's all done as with common law as its base. But the reason why it works so well here in the United States is because the people are the sovereignty, right? And so that literally means that the government is vested with like the way the king used to vest, say, the sheriff and the various other royal councils and members and stuff with his authority to go do things on the king's behalf. It's the reverse here in the United States. It's literally the power. The government is vested with the power of the people to act as a sovereign, but they're not sovereign. They only have a portion of our sovereignty that they borrow, which we also still retain. But yes, it generally works anywhere where you're in the international securities market, where common law is the base of that securities market. So that's where you can file at-law counterclaims, because you still, even in England or in anywhere really in Europe and in the West, it's the hypothecation of your estate. And even if you're like a tenant or a vassal or something in England, say, even this all started with the Magna Carta, right? Well, it actually started when William the Conqueror created the Doomsday Book after conquering England and forced everybody to register their property. But you still have rights to your estate and to your house that without a valid contract that has equal consideration, meaning equal benefit to both parties, is fraud and it's vitiated. That means there is no contract, and so it's a trespass upon your estate. Like, for instance, the barons of England could sue the king for such issues, and that often was the case post Magna Carta. So that's why I'm saying, yes, it does work. It works the best in the United States because we are actually the kings, but it still works everywhere else because there has to be valid consideration. It actually has to be a lawful contract where it's mutually beneficial and all of the stipulations are disclosed, is the word I'm looking for. And on top of that, everything always requires your consent. That's the whole origin of just powers of government of any kind, whether it be a king or a parliament or a Congress, it all requires consent in the first place. That's why United States, Crude versus Neal, is that was actually right when we first became even a country. And it was the prosecution of a British loyalist because he was a British loyalist. And he didn't go along with the new system of government or whatever, so they tried to take him to court, and he was found not guilty because, as it says in that case, that man in a state of nature is independent of the institutions of his fellow men absent consent, meaning as a new country has not been formed at the time that he was a British loyalist, and he never swore allegiance to the new country, that he was independent of our new institution because he never gave it consent. So he was free to do whatever the hell he wanted to do until he gave consent to be a part of our new institution. That's literally what that case means that it found. It's Cruden versus Neal, which is a 1780 something. I don't remember exactly. I'm sure I have it actually. I'll look it up next time. I have it. Hold on. Let me see, just because I don't like telling you guys stuff and not showing you. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Why are you not typing? There we go. Yeah, Cruden, there it is. Cruden v. Neal. Let me look it up. 1796, I'm sorry. And let me see. Let me find the exact quote here. I'll share the screen so you guys can look at what I'm looking at real quick. So, yeah, Cruden v. Neal, 1796, May term of the circuit. And says that basically in substance stated that the plaintiff in the year removed himself from the state to avoid getting his assistance in the then war carried on against the King of Britain and attached himself to the enemy. And the plea concluded with praying judgment whether he should be answered to this. There was a demur enjoinder. See, this was a charge of, I believe, treason, or it came under maritime admiralty, which is why it was in the circuit. This is not a common law case, but it's still valid. It's law. So every common law is the base, and then in order to end up in the other jurisdictions of law, you have to contract, whether it be maritime admiralty, military. Equity is literally the enforcement of contracts, or the other one is the only one you can fall into under presumption. That's probate, but that's a conversation for another time. Here it is. So it says that the majority shall prevail is a rule posterior to the formation of government and results from it. It is not a rule binding upon mankind in their natural state, right? So what he's saying is that the majority shall prevail comes after the formation of government and results from it. It's not a rule binding upon mankind in their natural state, meaning before government, before they agree to be part of government. So it says here, in a natural state, there, every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institution formed by his fellow men without his consent. This applies everywhere. Everywhere. But more especially, this is a common law understanding right here. This is the point. Before there's even government or any forms of law issued by man, you know what I mean? Which are a statutory law. It's not actually law, because the only actual law is natural law. And that's why I say mankind in a state of nature is independent of the institutions of his fellow men, to sum it up. And so it's until you agree to be subject to the institutions of your fellow men. Once you agree, then you are under those statutes and codes. But without that consent and without that agreement, and in order for there to be agreement, in order for there to be a valid contract, there has to be mutual consent and mutual consideration. Consideration doesn't mean to think about. See, there's one of those law words you guys need to learn. Consideration means benefit experienced as a result from a contract. So you give me a benefit, I give you a benefit. And if we both receive, equal consideration or satisfactory consideration, then the contract is valid. But without that, and that's the law of contracts, the contract's not valid. So what does the government give you in exchange for your pledge of allegiance and citizenship? Right? So they say, oh, well, we give you citizenship and we give you rights. Well, no, I already had those in a state of nature. Under natural law, I have those rights already. Like, you didn't give me, and all you've given me is supposed privileges now that you can take away. So what benefit do I get as a result of this arrangement? And the truth is, if you look at almost any government on the face of the earth right now, is none, not a fucking single thing. No, it's invalid. And just so you guys get that again, that's Cruden v. Neal, 1796. So back to Keir Starmer, shall we? And then I got to go to bed. Where the hell was, there it is. So we'll start that over real quick.
So here's a reality you won't hear in the MSM. Labour is a party of paedophiles. And I'm about to present Starmer's list of shame the political establishment ignores. I've been prompted to do this because do you notice that less than a week after a former Labour minister was arrested after a Facebook paedophile sting where he was accused of meeting a 15-year-old boy for sex, the MSM and the political establishment have simply moved on. Nothing to see here, folks.
You told this child that you was going to go and meet him.
That wasn't because Stephen will be at work.
At 1 o'clock.
You can see this child.
I hear it.
Back, yes.
I wouldn't do anything.
This child regularly told you that they were at school and they were doing school-related activities.
Indeed, Ivor Kaplan was back yesterday posting on X more revolting material that prompted Robbie Travers to reply publicly saying, you need to stop, Ivor. You were messaging me at 16, offering me ways to advance my political career when we met. You need to immediately desist. Meanwhile, former Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen has accused an unnamed Labour MP of being a paedophile in a bombshell new interview.
I'm attacking a Labour MP who I believe is a paedophile, and I'm getting flack from my own party. There's something wrong.
Yeah, I think he was just on Alex Jones' show, actually.
How many of the MPs would you say in Parliament do you think would be?
I think he got forced out of the party.
I have no idea. I have no idea, but we certainly had a bad record round here.
So, here is the list of shame proving that Labour is a party of paedophiles. Steve Carnell, the agent for Labour Minister Chris Bryant, was caught with more than 12,000 indecent images and 450 films and was jailed for 3 years. Welsh Labour candidate Abdul Majid Rahman, jailed for more than 3 years for distributing child sexual abuse videos after more than 100 were found on his iPhone and laptop. Torrin Smith,
oh yeah, well,
resigned
dude,
as a Labour councillor in Lambeth
immediately
and later
arrested when he
pleaded
came out of the
guilty
womb. Look
for
at him.
possessing
Are you
child
kidding me?
abuse images in court.
Straight to jail.
Brian Gate, convicted for child pornography and resigned as a Labour councillor. Former Labour Mayor Graham Pearson, cautioned for possession of child abuse images. John Friery,
I'd be down to
another
do,
Labour
you know,
councillor,
do an interview
convicted
or a
and
video with
jailed for
whoever, man,
15
as long as
months
they're
for
solid
grooming
people.
a child for sex.
What's
Adrian
up, walking Axel?
Surset, a former Labour councillor and school governor,
Good
who was
God,
given
how
a
many?
pathetic 3-year community order after being convicted for possession of the worst
Yeah, dude, it's
type
not
of
like
child
like half of them and then the other half are not.
Ex-Reading Labour councillor Nelson Bland admitted 16 counts of making indecent images of children and 1 count of distributing child porn. Keith Potts, a Labour councillor and school governor, was cautioned for making child pornography. Scottish Labour councillor David Fagan convicted after telling an undercover police officer he to rape a child and sending her
Holy
messages
shit,
about
dude.
incest and abuse.
Good God.
Peter
Let's speed this
Tuffley,
up a little bit.
a Labour
Maybe
Party
up there.
organiser and aspiring MP, jailed for 15 months for grooming a 13-year-old boy on the internet. American Labour volunteer Tim Russo was a convicted paedophile child abuser campaigning illegally for the party in the East Midlands. Newcastle Labour Party communications worker Samuel Gamlin pleaded guilty for possession of child pornography and received a 3-year community order, seeing him suspended from the party. Hackney Labour councillor and Croydon Labour Borough organiser Tom Dewey pleaded guilty to a
Is his
range
last name
of serious
really
charges,
Tom Dewey?
including
That's pretty
possession
funny.
of and
Or is
creating
it
sexual
Chewy,
and
like
sadistic
Chewbacca?
images of children after a National Crime Agency investigation found he had been downloading extreme pornographic images involving violence, as well as images of sex with animals, and more than 1,500
shit.
images involving
The
the sexual
animals.
abuse of
There's some
children over a
freaky motherfuckers.
14-year period. And I am really sorry to have to go into those details. Let me tell you, when I was researching last night, I felt completely sick about what this.
Yeah, that's how I felt Saturday when I did the pizza parlor presentation. That's pretty insane, dude. Damn. And it's definitely not all of those people, and not the majority of the rest of them. I mean, hell, the only guy who came out got kicked out of the party. You know what I mean? Came out saying, "Hey, dude, I think these guys are, doing some fucked up stuff." And then they're like, "Yeah, you get out of here. You're not part of this anymore." That's yes, I agree, Eldon. Tell it all now as well. They are freaks. They do need to be dealt with, and Salad agrees. So, to answer some of the questions while I was playing that video, it's I believe. Let me go back up and address it again. Who had said it? Just one moment here. Says somebody said, well, okay, rethinking. So I think it was you that asked. It says, can we actually take our nation back through these means? Yes, you can. The whole thing is they set this up right from the beginning. Okay, and if you haven't watched my law videos on this stuff, you really should, especially the Magna Carta ones, because I explain the exact process that they use. It started with the ecclesiastical courts created by William the Conqueror to deal with matters of life and death, right? When he conquered England, forced everybody to register their property, he wanted to take control of the inheritance of property so he could essentially escheat the property to the crown. He also introduced the divine right to rule. So he gave the power of the descent of property to the ecclesiastical courts, which meant instead of like how they were self-governing, where you just leave your property to your child through your will, right, through your heir, through your will, now it had to go through the ecclesiastical court, and they decided, how the property got passed down. If the child wasn't of age, then they would administer the property till the child came of age. And of course, they steal from the property, or they cheat the heir out of the property, give it to somebody else. There's a whole bunch of corruption. That's what led to the creation of the Magna Carta. But what happened with the Magna Carta was it infected the previously unwritten common law, right, with Roman trust law. And it actually opened the door and legitimized the taking of estates through presumption. Okay, this is why when you fast forward all the way to the ordinances of the territories in the United States, it's pretty much a mirror image of the stuff put down in the Magna Carta. It's dealing with right in the very first section, by the second paragraph, it's talking about how property is to be inherited, and even if you're half blood, you're still to be treated as whole blood. And this is all the way 600 years later. Okay, so one of those things, the creation of the probate, ecclesiastical courts became what we know now as probate. And that's why the judge wears a black robe, because everything's probate now. Okay. Everything's probate, whether it's traffic court, all of it is probate, because now everything is the administration of infant estates. They started by grandfathering in probate without having to put it in any of the founding documents, because it was already a known and acknowledged part of English common law, which we inherited in America. And it except for without a king, the people were kings, and that's American common law. That's really the primary difference between English common law and American common law. Okay. And we also inherited the other forms, like Michigan had chancery courts and all that stuff, but common law is the base law. Then what happened was they took control of the education. First of all, the people who knew the law were primarily the more wealthy people and educated people. So they immediately escheated the estates of the poor, especially in Michigan. They created the probate court before we even became a state. They created in 1827. We didn't even ratify our Constitution until 1835. And the probate court was created in 1827. They planned on it the whole fucking time. Okay. And then if you went to the overseers of the poor for a benefit, your estate got taken over because you couldn't take care of yourself. If you're coming to the government for a benefit, then you are an infant and can't manage your affairs, and therefore they took over your estate and started administering it. Then there's a whole bunch of other things that they legislated that they could administer, or they could take over the estate for. If you're a spendthrift, a distracted person, an imbecile, a lunatic, a minor, an infant, right? If you weren't of age. And so what ended up happening is they gradually started usurping more and more and more and more of the people's estates until finally they reached a critical mass and figured they could get away with, especially after the Civil War, they escheated a whole bunch of stuff. And then they reached a critical mass and figured they had enough to create the Federal Reserve, right? And then so now you started having these people running municipalities controlling the estates of the people within them. And they would get these people to subscribe, use them as collateral for farm loans through the Federal Reserve, right? And then that continued, and people accepting benefits, et cetera, all the way up until they had a critical mass, and then they crashed the economy, and they had enough people signed on to U.S. citizenship. The 14th Amendment is a big part of this too, because that's how they centralized the borrowing power and centralized the collateral. So the United States gave way to the 14th Amendment, which was never lawfully ratified, created the United States person, which gave the federal corporation more collateral to use to borrow from the central bank once they established it. Then they established it in 1913. They continued to grow their collateral, a sheet of states, because as soon as you sign up for United States citizenship, your entire estate is under administration, because now you're being granted privileges in the form of rights, but they're privileges. So you're an infant because you can't protect yourself or secure your own rights. You need the government to do it. So now you're an infant, right? And so everybody under United States citizenship automatically has their estates under administration. In fact, the very United States citizenship was for the newly freed slaves who didn't have any rights under the Constitution. And so everybody who signed on to that basically became a public. All that did was take the private slaves from private slaves to public slaves, right? And that's where marriage licenses came from. If you wanted to marry a United States citizen, you needed a license because that was public chattel. So you needed permission to marry the public chattel and to breed with the public chattel. That's just how it worked. And then so there by proxy, you became public chattel. And then, and people signed up for this stuff gradually. I'm making this really short, brief summary because I got to get off here. And it's much more in depth and detailed, and I can explain all of it perfectly for you. But anyways, so once the public chattel reached a certain threshold, they crashed the economy, mortgaged the estates of all the chattel, and then pretty much picked up the remainder of anybody who was not a federal citizen through the Great Depression, or by the Great Depression, through the need for federal benefits to survive, starvation, essentially. And then by the time you reemerge on the other side in the 40s, and you've got World War II, everybody's, people are being drafted or volunteer and all this stuff. Everybody's United States citizen. And through all of those, basically the Spanish flu, the Civil War, the Spanish flu, World War I, then the Spanish flu, then the Great Depression, then World War II. By the time you get to the other end of all that trauma, people forgot all about everything about state citizenship versus fed, all of it. It was all lost. But I have all of the history to prove everything I just said. And the law works, and I've proven that as well. So there's nothing they can do about it at the end of the day, because once you reclaim your estate and you know how to use the law against them, they literally shit their pants. They don't know what to do because they're not used to that, because it's all fake. It's all just, there is no court. There are only administrative hearings. That's it. And it's all just special administration by black robe priests. That's it. That's all it is. There are no crimes, right? There's just violations of trust. That's it. You're all under administration as infants, and until you learn the law, you will remain an infant, and rightfully so. They're not wrong when they say that, because you do not know how to manage the affairs. You don't even know you have an estate, for starters. How's that? So, you mean the aspirin? No, I mean it's something like that. Not the aspirin poisoning. It was another kind of poisoning, but yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. But fortunately for you, there's myself and several other people who actually know how this shit works, really know how it works. Not like, oh, you can take your trust and use it to pay your bills. That's all bullshit. If you accept the benefit, you forgo the inheritance. The truth is you have to claim your estate and remove yourself from any contractual relationship with the federal corporation whatsoever. That's it. Well, thank you, Salad. I appreciate that. But anyways, guys, definitely way off topic this morning at the law, but I hopefully I was able to kind of, give you guys some insight on that. We'll definitely incorporate more of that if you guys actually enjoy it in the morning show. The reason I kind of went more into news stuff and got it because I felt like the law was heavy and it was boring a lot of people. But the truth is you're never going to get out of the situation. You're never, you can bitch about the government all you want, but it's this way because we allowed it to become this way. That's it. They're borrowing and using our power. They buy all of their military equipment using our Social Security trusts. Seriously, a guy did a Freedom of Information Act of his Social Security account, his master file, and it came back and it was a bunch of codes. So he did FOIAs on all the codes, and he found out that his trust was being used to purchase like fucking missiles and ammunition, guns, all sorts of stuff for wars. That's how they're paying for everything, is through the hypothecation of your estate and using that to generate debt currency that they then just spend on whatever the fuck they want. That's why people are like, they print it out of thin air. No, they don't print it out of thin air. You are the collateral that allows them to print it. Period. So I have done videos on that, but I can do another video. Yeah, for sure. It says, I understand the mechanisms, the way back. I question if they'd not pull some event to pull in. But we're already under martial law. It's never been lifted since the fucking 1860s, since the Civil War. Everything the president does is under emergency war powers. In fact, there's a Senate report from 1973 that says as much. I have that as well. Actually, I've got it right here. There's not much I don't have when it comes to proving this stuff. In fact, I doubt there's anything. Let's see. My computer's really being slow right now. So there it is. Senate Report 93-5. Oh, fucker. Oh, I know why. Because it's in my files. My bad. Hold on. There it is. This SD card that I have is highly valuable. Check this out, guys. This proves exactly what I said about martial law. Look, they're going to say it only goes back to 33, but it really goes back to 1860s. So in this Senate report, here, zoom in real quick. So you guys see this is Senate report of the Special Committee on the Termination of National Emergency, United States, November 19th, 1973. It says, since March 9th, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. In fact, there are now in effect 4 presidential proclaimed states of emergency, in addition to national emergency declared by Roosevelt in 33. But see, what this neglects to tell you is what even created that ability in the first place is the very first state of emergency, martial law, created by Abraham Lincoln. And it says there are the national emergency proclaimed by President Truman, December 16th, President Nixon, 1970, and 1971. And then they don't even add into the ones that have been proclaimed, like the one by Bush in 2001, or the most recent one that we just had over the last 5 years. These are all continued and add-on multi-layered states of emergency. That's how everything's being run through commerce and emergency war powers under Article 1. That's it. So it's all fake. And so it says, let's see, I want to see where it says. It says, under the powers delegated by these statutes, the president may seize property, organize and control means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise. That's where your licensing comes from. That's actually from the Trading with the Enemy Act that Roosevelt amended in 1933 to just include everybody engaged in any type of commerce. Restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens, right? So, yeah, and that's part of a forward by Charles MCC Matthias, I guess, Jr. and Frank Church, co-chairman. So, and it basically tells you that the Constitution has been suspended definitely since 1933, but it's actually been suspended since the Civil War. That's how 1933 was able to happen in the first place. That's how Woodrow Wilson could just sign the Federal Reserve Act in while most of Congress was away on Christmas vacation because of the emergency war powers the president was given. So it's all horseshit. Anyway, guys, I really got to go to bed. So I like to prove everything I tell you, just so you guys know. I always bring the receipts. And here with this, gun ownership is firearm ownership firearm is a commercial term. You notice I never use the term firearms on this show, or at least rarely, because I consciously make a point to use the constitutional term, which is arms. You don't have firearms, you have arms. Firearms is a commercial term. And firearms laws only applies to 14th Amendment debt slaves under commercial code. That's it. Firearms, that's why they made new names for everything, because they had to make it. That's how they loosely are still doing everything constitutionally, because they're not restricting your right to bear arms. They're restricting your right to bear firearms, which is a commercial term, something completely different in their mind. So, yeah, that's right. Nation. That's why the very first political subdivision of a state is an e-state, because it's the people. A state is just a state of being, and we live in a free state. So, well, we're supposed to, right? Capital S state is a corporate name. It's not actually the state. Its state is supposed to be written with a lowercase s. Citizen is supposed to be written with a capital C, right? And of course, people, capital P, right? But the state is lowercase s because the sovereignty comes from what's within the state, not the state itself. So anyways, you guys have an excellent day. I hope this was informative, entertaining, not too dry and boring. I actually am probably going to work on my paperwork tomorrow. I need to finish that up because you guys keep asking for it, and I need to finish it anyway. And then I will probably be back with you. What's today? Wednesday morning. That sound good to you guys? All right, Catch, good to see you. I didn't even know you were watching. Valley Parks, what do you need my opinion on? If you can type it quickly. Very good to see all of you as well. I'll tell you what, Valley, put it in the comments because I got to go to bed. I'm super tired and I got to get up for work and shortly, like 5 hours, 6 hours. So just put it in the comments for me and I will get back to you. Okay. All right. Oh, you need to get it. Yeah. Why? Yeah. Just, we'll address that next time. If you watch next time, that's a big, why do you need, we'll address that next time for sure. We'll discuss that. Maybe I'll let you up on the panel and we can have a conversation. So, all right, guys, driver's license is permission to do something unlawful, and driver is a commercial term, just so you know. You know, you only need a driver's license if you're operating commercially, but you have to learn how to stand on that. So, yeah, we'll cover that. So, all right, guys, have an excellent day, and I will see you guys Wednesday morning.